What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 293 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have an interview with Graham from Instagrahamski on Instagram. He is a masonry specialist that does a lot of beautiful work that you can find at Instagrahamski on Instagram. That's INSTA, Insta, GRAHAM, Graham, Ski, SKI, and I highly suggest that you go over and give him a follow. We get into a lot of topics that are mostly based around Graham's experiences in his life, from traveling around North America and doing install work, and then now in Spain and pursuing that as well. A couple different horror stories that we also get into from his time in business that are definitely unique. But before we get into today's episode, we want to thank our sponsors, Cycle CPA. And if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Knowledge Tree Consulting, if you are looking for somebody to help you in your business, I would highly recommend Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in our industry, and you've heard them on the podcast multiple times before. George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping, and George a couple of other times talking about various topics, and we'll definitely have George on in the future to talk more. But you can learn more about them at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And thank you to Mosier for jumping on board to sponsor the How to Hardscape podcast. I just got my hands on a Mosier 2 Pro, and I'll be using it to measure, draw, calculate areas, perimeters, volume, elevations, and lay out the entire project on my device and for estimating and design process. And if you're looking for a software to dive into, the How to Hardscape headquarters software will help you budget, estimate, job cost, time track, schedule, and so much more, including our courses that allow you to assign and onboard employees, train employees. You can find out more at hthheadquarters.com. That's hthheadquarters.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined by Graham. You can follow him online, Instagrahamski. That's Insta, GRAHAMSKI, with all his beautiful work there. Mason in America as well, now in Spain. Graham, thanks so much for joining us here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Graham, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you yourself. How did you get started in the industry? Take us from wherever and stop wherever you kind of want there.
Well, I'll just do like a kind of like a bullet point. So it's just like a basic like summer job entry. Like I worked at like a really old masonry supply yard, and just to, you know, my family were builders and stuff. So it's like I was always kind of pushed to just like have some exposure to the trades, and I was kind of going, you know, planning to go to college and stuff too. So there's a local really old brick builder that like a brick manufacturer that was also a brickyard. And so a couple summers I worked there, and, you know, I thought it was a summer job at the time, but I was actually like really making a great network of all like the local masons and kind of getting to know them all personally, because like loading their trucks, and, you know, most of them are just, you know, grouchy at me and stuff. But it's like throughout the years, those relationships actually meant something. And then I went off to I have like a bachelor's degree in English and social science. And through those summers, I worked for a local mason who, you know, like a 40-year mason here in Seacoast, New Hampshire. And, you know, I did like a lot of the traditional Rumford fireplaces, just chimney rebuilds, historic like brick building restorations, brick, block, and stone. Not a lot of stone walls. That was like a passion of mine personally, that I was like, oh, I want to get into. I'll work with this mason. I'll build stone walls. And kind of soon thereafter, he's like, yeah, I don't build stone walls. So I was like, oh, God damn it. You know, so it's like, actually the first stone wall I just built, I'm really like super into salvage. So some of the things like I did when I worked for him, we tear down old brick chimneys, and he would just mostly like throw them in fills, and I would take the time to clean them and take them to like the local brickyard I used to work for and put them there on consignment. And one really interesting thing is, like, if you're restoring old brick buildings, it's like you can't just mix in any bricks, and a lot of these bricks aren't made anymore. So there's like always people kind of hunting around for matches for old stuff. So if you actually take the time to do it, you know, you can get like $3 to $5 a brick, and like, and that was, you know, 20 something years ago. So for someone being like a mason tender, that felt like good money here or there. You get a
Right.
call, be like, here's 2 grand. You know what I mean? So, and I would love to salvage like old stone that we tore down and stuff like that. And then I built my first stone wall just like off stuff I salvaged at my house. And like, it's at the house I live at now. So like every morning I got to go out and like look at the first stone wall I ever built and just be super humbled. You know what I mean? It's like some of the stuff that I've done on my own, like I'm like I have at my house, and it's like a good reminder of how far, like how long it takes to get good at the craft. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. You and I also had very similar starts working for a stone yard. But then you went off and worked for a mason there. What was the sort of thought process behind that, as opposed to like continuing with the stone yard or going off and doing something in a completely different industry? Did you just fall in love with it, working at the stone yard there?
Well, that was just it was just like good. It was like I don't know. It was kind of like boot camp to me. It was a personal challenge. It was like incredibly difficult. Like it was like 5:30 in the morning to 5 at night. Like and Saturdays for like 6 or 7 hours, and like it felt like I needed to do it to kind of prove it to myself because I always thought like that I could handle something like that, but I'd never really actually done it. So it's like I definitely did that as kind of like a personal challenge, and it's like kind of out of that. I don't. I never was like, oh, I'm in love with masonry. Like when I had graduated college, I like called the local mason who I had worked for and was like, hey, will you hire me as an apprentice? And he's like, I'm like, what do you want me to say? He goes, I want you to say that you want to be a mason for the rest of your life. And I'm like, not a chance. You know what I mean? So it's like, and he like laughed and yada yada. But ultimately, it's always been a numbers game with kind of what we were discussing before about the lack of tradesmen and like kind of my age bracket. Like regardless of my degree, there was always just kind of more money to be made in the building industry in the past. I went out on my own in 2008, which was a wild kind of year to do that because of the economy totally crashing. So it was like I hired like some of my friends, and then I had like like an 18-month job, and 5 or 6 months in November of 2008, he like this owner of the home came in. He's like brought in all the subs and was like, "All right, guys, I'm laying you all off. I'm selling the house." And so like all of a sudden, being a new business and having hired your friends, and it was like a really choppy time to like not just go under immediately. And so there's like people don't know now. I guess they've lost sight that there's like 5 companies slitting each other's throat over like a $3,000 walkway. You know what I mean? It was like that desperate for finding work. So it was a really through that time, keeping busy was a challenge, but it also like I made a lot of really strong relationships that I still lean on through the years here, and like people whom I still work together with because we kind of knew we would be there kind of for each other if things get tight. So I don't know. It's like I don't like to predict future downturns, but it's always it's like I feel like it's like an old person who went through the Great Depression, being like, kind of like, I hope it does. Back in 2008, everything went crazy, something
Yeah,
like that. It's like so.
yeah,
But yeah, so I went out on my own just kind of because my grandfather was a builder, was always kind of like, always work for yourself, always work for yourself. And I was like, oh, if I'm gonna be doing masonry, I know I can get jobs. I was really inspired to do it because I would watch the general contractors that we worked for, and they'd be like late for meetings with the homeowners or like way over budget or always messing things up. And like they were still just getting like multi-million-dollar jobs. And I'm like, I know I can do all that stuff better, like just show like, and I always felt really confident in like writing the estimates and like being like I treat my estimates like they're gonna be like legally binding contract, like I'm gonna get sued because and I like probably overwrite, but like having like a degree in English is actually one place that really like helped in explaining like a real big job process that like I want one job I did with my cousin, like we wrote this super long estimate and the other guy like wrote a number on a piece of plywood. And the guy's like, well, that number on the plywood's way lower, but he wrote me like a 10-page novella about why this job is going to cost that much money, so I think I'm going to go with you. So
right.
little things like that. So but you're asking me like how I got in it. Then I didn't really want to keep doing masonry, so I sold my masonry company, which was at that time Stonewall Razak, which my cousin Mike bought, and so actually he's grown into a very successful masonry company, doing just massive projects. I was just helping him out. He's doing a project that's currently like the most one of the most expensive houses in Maine. I don't know. I don't keep track of that stuff, but it's a very, very, very valuable house in Maine. And we've been there for a couple of years and he's doing a fabulous job and he's really growing the company. So it's really cool to have seen something that I'd started like really take hold and take off and stuff. But I didn't really want to keep doing that. So my wife and I moved to Hawaii, sold the company to my cousin Mike, and I was like, I'll reinvent myself. But I like ended up doing masonry there and like that was a different experience because like I was working with the lava rock and you can't just like buy that stuff at the stores. You have to like make personal relationships to like get it off people's land because like Hawaiians believe like each lava rock is a reincarnated Hawaiian ancestor. So to be like a white guy there hitting them with hammers, you kind of like had to get to know people and things. So that kind of kept me in the trade. And then we were there for a few years, came back to New England, continued kind of just collaborating with people around here whom I'd known. And then in 2018, I went to Northern California and I had some really great clients from San Francisco who had like a second home up in like wine country in in Napa and Sonoma County area. And in 2020, like before COVID, like my job that I'd been at for like 2 years got hit with a wildfire and burned down. And I like lost all like my tools and equipment. And it was just a real setback because like I was like doing very well out there, and I just I relocated my family there. And then like kind of stuck it out, didn't move back home here to New Hampshire again. And I got another big job through COVID, but like I ended up just doing this whole project literally like almost by myself because got the ultimatum during COVID, like you can either stop or keep going. But I just couldn't get anyone to work with me because like Sonoma County was like the seventh county in the United States to lock down. So I ended up like I did the math. I probably paid like $2 an hour over 8 months, but like I had like a tiniest bit of cash flow and kept busy. But I wasn't like an entity that could get PPPs. And like, it's like at that point I just had a daughter and I was married. So it's like after a while we came back to New England for a third time. And I've been here just doing like, now at this point, post COVID, so many people from New York and Boston have moved up to New England and just kind of really driven up the price of real estate, created a huge competitive market for contractors because there's like a lot of people willing to pay the highest bidder. So it's been a really good time to be in the business around here. But I've essentially always been fleeing the winter. It's like so hard to make the same living in January as July and all that stuff. So I'm constantly trying to look for warm weather places to live where there's money. So
got it. And
yeah.
and now Spain.
Yeah, specifically Mallorca, like the island in the Mediterranean there off the south. It's like it's great. And the thing is there's like no lumber trees and everything is stone and it's like so I'm it's going to be that the tradesmen there make a lot less money, unfortunately, although they have all their like benefits and all their retirement taken care of and they seem very happy. And it's like their pay is lower, but it's like in the meantime, when you have United States bills, it's hard to switch to like the European pay for. So I'm trying to make that transition now and be able to work there legally.
Going to so many different places, were you able to pick up certain tricks or certain techniques or anything in general that you're able to apply again and again wherever you kind of move to next?
Yeah, man, definitely. Like very radical. Like New England, it's like how to build in the winter, how to like keep mortar from freezing, how to prepare your products so they can withstand the cold, so you can work in the cold, so things don't get cold overnight. Building structures, like being a mason, but also knowing how to frame well enough to build something on the ocean that can withstand 40-mile-an-hour winds that's surrounding whatever you're building. Um, like specifically California, like all the seismic stuff, like all the footers are all beefed up, the rebar's beefed up. How many, how much you put in your concrete block walls is beefed up. Like I've done a fair amount of like commercial CMU work. So like all like learning how it's done in different parts of the country is cool. Hawaii, it was the opposite. The land was just very new and it was moving. And one of the gigs there, I was like jacking houses up and redoing their footers because they would literally just be sliding. You know what I mean? These houses are built on like blocks. And I was working with one of the structural engineers at the University of Hawaii. And essentially, I didn't have my license there, but he had his license to spec out these I just worked under his license is what I'm trying to say. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, so that was really neat. And California, it's like building for fire, like how to like, I really, I moved out there after a giant fire in 2017 in near the Santa Rosa area. Um, and I like really wanted to innovate concrete block walls with irrigation in them. And like kind of you could veneer them, but you could literally have, metal spigots that like blew water in the air and the perimeter around your house because there's like so many stories of people like turning their sprinklers on and it's saving their house. And I was like, oh man, I can like incorporate, something beautiful and functional and innovate, and there might be something that catches on. And then it was like I was there for like a couple of years and everything burned down. And I was like, I didn't even get a prototype built. So it was like, but I still like but that seismic stuff, the winter stuff, and and just working with different masons, specifically now in Spain. I just went and worked with these like this really, really, really well known European waller, and like it was so humbling. I like consider myself pretty good at some styles of walling, and these Majorcan stone walls are like so unique, so much chiseling and handwork, and they swing these massive hammers, and they do all this like crazy work that we do with like chisels, like with these really big hammers, and make it look easy. And I'm like trying to swing them, and I'm like my wrist is gonna break, and it's like, so it was like the point being, it's like all the different techniques of all the different people I've worked with. Having to build waterproof stuff on the ocean is just different in different places. Everything I worked with in Hawaii, like you had to treat it like you're on a boat. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like if you built anything wood, like just stuff like that,
Yeah.
just like environmental, personal relationships, the tricks of the trade stuff. It's been huge, all the stuff I've learned in different places.
Definitely. And when you are moving somewhere next and in the past, what did you do to learn those new building techniques? Did you, before you moved, try to network with somebody online that can show you the ropes, or did you research beforehand and then go? Like, what's the whole process of trying to learn how people build in these different places?
There's like a lot of available like code stuff. So I mean, if you're gonna go like, especially if you're building relationships and like not and like a lot of the stuff I've done, I've like everything I've done has been permitted, but I'm always like worked with a lot of homeowner builder permits and things like that. So I want to make sure there is inspections. I have to be building things to code wherever I am. So publicly available code information is something that I've leaned on, but it's like most of all work I've got has been based upon personal relationships that I've gleaned through like traveling a lot. And like I took a couple of years off between high school and college, and like just I've done 28 coast to coast trips in my car, and like I've taken a lot of time to like go to a lot of national parks. And I've just and I'd almost say the thing out of college that was the most beneficial was just like the personal relationships that I met. There were people who were connected me to future clients and things like that. And then so through friends and family, I had enough to like keep me busy for 10, 12 years. And then, Instagram, I don't think I started my Instagram when I moved to Hawaii in 2011. And it, went from like taking pictures of a ham sandwich to like using to grow a business, so it's like, now it's like, if I don't put you can send me a DM and it's like, I'm working for a guy back here who is just a local landscaper and right now, and he got his first like house that he's doing as opposed to just kind of doing the landscape, but like he's doing the veneer in the home. So he hired me to come back and kind of give him the guidance of like not only switching from like landscape walls to like actually veneering homes around openings, and like to how to like make it make it winterproof. So I kind of like just like to handpick who I work for when I can. And I have a few clients. Being on one job working for somebody for a couple of years, I was able to kind of like tell a number of personal clients like, hey, as soon as this job's done, let's get something on the schedule, but I have to stick and finish this. So I kind of find like it's important to like itemize your jobs, like can be done in winter, and then like can be done whenever in the next 12 to 18 months, like, and then so I just kind of reverse engineer scheduling like that. And then I really like, if cool things come up, I like to be able to do them. So I don't know. I would have a hard time telling somebody do it this way because it's really flow and like really like based upon opportunity and and upon financial viability. Like I do, try to cherry pick like the most profitable situation. So And that's why I don't really do the stone trust that much, because they kind of classify like, hey, if you're this level, you make this much money. If you're this level, you make that much money. And it's kind of like, what if you're, I don't want to like be, I don't want to be classified. I want to be able to make as much money as I can make. I really feel like there's situations where your services are worth more, worth less. Like you might bring a certain level of expertise. You might know you could produce more. You might be able to be like, hey, I know you pay guy A this much money, but I can put up this much square footage in this amount of time, and you can charge this much for it. Having like run the business and having 6 to 8 guys before, I think I can, as a sub, I think I can uniquely think about a job knowing like I'm not, I'm here to make money for myself, but why I'm really here is to make the guy who hired me money. And knowing how the inner workings of the business actually go, taking a step back and being a sub for people, I think I can like think about the job how they need me to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't about you putting up the most beautiful thing. It's nice, but this is about me making money on this project. So I think being able to like articulate that to a business owner, they're like, oh, nice, this guy, and I can be like, here's how much money I can make you in this amount of time. So sometimes I'll even make a set price deal. It's not even about hourly or square footage. Just like, hey, if you're going to make X amount of dollars, give me 40%, or like, whatever, just something. It's like, I'm very open to unique business like deals like that. So
I want to touch back on that, but I also want to ask you. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Do you love masonry now? You mentioned at the beginning that you working at the stone yard, not so much. Or is it a creative outlet where you would be creative elsewhere if you didn't have masonry?
100%. No, I would be creative elsewhere if I didn't have masonry, but I'm very grateful for the set of skills it gave me to be able to like have access to be creative. Do you know? Like I work with a lot of tradesmen who they're like, it came naturally to them. It did not come naturally to me. And it's like, at year 20 doing masonry, I just made huge leaps, so that's when I know I hear someone's been like 6, 8, 12. It's just like, everyone's got so much to learn always. There's always more to learn. And like the amount I've learned just in the past 5 to 6 years, I just like, and I still feel like, and just getting humbled last week, you know what I mean? It's like, I clearly have other things I can get better at. So it's like, I do really, really love it though. It's hard on the body. That's why I used to be a real jerk about like thin stone veneer, but like ultimately it's going to like keep a lot of people working. And, it's like not everything gets to be a castle. So it's like, there's applications for it. And it's like, it's easier on the wrist, easier on the hands. I've done like, I do like, my background was like a lot of like full bed veneer or like big rocks, a lot of chiseling. And so recently I've been trying to do a combination of both.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that you love traveling.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what's been your favorite place for, say, masonry work, or different places that have stuck out to you for inspiration, or just in general, that just being able to look at it and see it in person?
Well, currently, like the insane architecture in Europe, like I know I've done a lot of USA and Canada travel, but my European travel has been very limited. And like the village I'm living in now is like settled in 123 BC, and like some of these old stone structures that are still standing, it's like, there's a level of like respect and inspiration that comes from like seeing this stuff that like doesn't really exist, even when you look at the oldest stuff in the United States. So, I mean, that's really fresh in my mind, but I really enjoyed building like really custom, unique things inside the vineyards in Northern California. There's just so many incredible vistas and like so many different beautiful times of year. Like this time of year they have like all the mustard and the cherry blossoms, and it's like, and then like their you know grape season's amazing, and then they have like this awesome foliage around Thanksgiving. So I was always like in awe of like the misty mornings, and I really loved the weather there. um Hawaii was awesome. It's like I kind of feel about Hawaii that's like people are intruding there, and there's a weird energy of like the military's there, and like a lot of local people aren't happy, and it's like there's a lot of like stuff that was a little bit out of whack there. So it's like I kind of just felt like I was more at home in Northern California, and it's like I'd probably still be there if I didn't get hit by a fire. But I've been really, really inspired by the stuff in Europe, and I have some like really great ideas of how to like kind of work with some of the local rock at like an artistic level in Mallorca. So
Got it.
yeah,
Where along the way did you fall in love with masonry? Was it when you started your first business? Was it when you came back to masonry? What whereabouts along the way?
I think it was kind of like fusing what you've been talking about together. It was when I realized that through relationships I'd facilitated through travel, that I would be able to actually travel around and have my work in different places. That started to make me like I definitely get wanderlust. So anytime I'm in like one place doing a job for a while, I start to be like, it's just kind of, I guess, my personality too. And like, I have I have two children now, and I'm married, and I've been just had my 15th wedding anniversary. So it's like I've been in, I've had a family who's been willing to do this stuff with me. So I've been fortunate. But like the opportunity to just to travel and to like have a trade that would travel with me and be able to like know that I can go somewhere and they could take care of me, kind of having just like it's a confidence builder to be able to move and like know that like, oh, I can go do this job somewhere else. You know what I mean? I don't need to like kiss somebody's butt. It's going to be about competency and stuff like that. And so I think around then, when it gave me the ability to travel and work, something more about rock than like the masonry stuff. Like I really, not to get like hokey about rock, is like, like beach pebbles, like they get tumbled with so much energy by the ocean. I really like handling all that stuff. I really like breaking open super old granite, and like that's been hasn't been cracked open for millions of years. And it's just like that concept of working with the geology I started to get really fascinated with. And like I'm no geologist, but like I love rocks, you know what I mean? So there's that, like I was always like the kid like going to the gravel pit and picking out cool rocks or taking them home from the beach. And I know there's a lot of those people, but like, so I think once my occupation was able to kind of stimulate that, like that childhood love, it became like a more something that like, I like the fact that I can get up each day and like build something creative out of rocks or pebbles, and like it's gonna like look cool at the end. Yeah.
You've mentioned this word quite a few times in relationships. Is this how you've been able to not only work in multiple places, but actually just get jobs? Was it through leveraging these relationships? But also, I want to ask you about Instagram, and has that also brought in business to you?
Yeah, both. Instagram, I feel like has almost helped me meet more people to do a lot of jobs with. I've really seen Instagram as like, I think it like for all its shortcomings, it's really brought the quality of work up overall, because everybody's like seeing each other's projects, and like I think there's enough people who are open with how to do stuff that like overall, I think it made everybody a little bit better. And I think it's kind of easy to tell sometimes on Instagram, is not always, but like who you could work with and who you would enjoy working with. So yes, I've gotten a few jobs off Instagram. More than that, I've been asked by other masons or hardscapers or builders through Instagram to like help on a project, so yes. But yeah, like a lot of getting started was definitely about like friends and family in different places, and telling them like I'm willing to like go there. Do you know what I mean? Like if there's opportunity, it's kind of funny. There's like this post factory worker thing in this country where everyone thinks they're entitled to a job in their hometown, but like forever it was like people moved to where work was constantly, and it wasn't just like you had a house and a job came to you. It was like you went to the jobs. So I just have had that mindset, being like, if I can go to California and make triple the money, like why wouldn't I? You know what I mean? So tell anyone if they need a patio done. And then it's not a cliche to be like, why don't you just start doing like, you crack ground somewhere and like all of a sudden it's like two or three more jobs, just come out of the blue. Just be like, I know so and so across the street, or will you extend the wall onto my property, or, oh, whatever. And it's like, it's been weird because in different parts of the country, there's different people doing the jobs. So it's always been like, that's, in Northern California, there was just like a lot more like immigrants doing the work. And it was like, um, there was like a lot of people who could bang out some stuff, but there wasn't a lot of people who were like wanted to do like creative landscape design and then blend stone like art into it and stuff like that. So I don't know.
One thing that I've noticed actually very common with masons that do such beautiful work as yourself and others that we've had on the podcast is they don't have contact information on their Instagram or don't even have a website. Did you have one before you decided to move to Spain and you decided to take it down, or what's the story behind that, and why not have any of that kind of information on your Instagram?
Well, like I definitely, like, when I first started my business, it was like, oh, what I do is I put an ad in the phone book and I like, get them all these insurances. And I was like, so I think because I started like advertising like that, I found that most of my time when my information is publicly available was like, not most of it, but nowadays would be different. But it was like I'm just being used to like leverage somebody who they for a lower price, who they know they're already going to get the job. Or like I spent a lot of my time just like bidding on stuff that for random people I didn't know, who that I just wasn't getting. And it's like it just got to the point where the word of mouth was like I didn't need to advertise at all. It's like I don't mean that like I that there's not blips in my schedule. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like I got always have the best work. It's like I still work for my work, and it's like I have to like go work for other people a lot, and I have to do things I don't like to a lot, just to make keep money coming in. But like there's enough people who have my contact information or who are waiting for me to contact them that I like, you know. There's been a couple times in the past few years when I've like said, "Hey, in the next 3 weeks, if anyone needs us any help," and put it on my story, and that's like got me a job, and stuff like that. I've met some really cool people doing that. But yeah, very rarely, do I need to do that. And like before I moved out to Spain here, I had to set up like enough work to know I could come back to the States like 3 or 4 times over the first 4 months to like kind of just keep working, until I get all my like all the papers there and make relationships there. So there it's going to be more about like fixing up stone buildings for me, I think. You know what I mean? It's going
Right.
to be, and the thing is, the hardscapes there are they're just gorgeous, and there's a lot of beautiful limestone on the island that has a variety of hardnesses, so you can do lots of different things with it. There's beautiful just pavers that they are just stone pavers, like the old European style like streets where just like stones in a line, like this. It's just kind of cool stuff like that. So I'm
Gotcha.
really inspired to kind of build some like really old looking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you did mention your estimating and your how you're able to put that together, but also working unique deals with people. Where did you learn sort of being able to know what kind of percentage you could do to make somebody else money, but also make yourself money? Is it just a matter of you've done it for so long, you know how long this project is going to take, and you're able to work out that deal? Have you documented those, how long jobs are going to take you over time, or how have you kind of come across being able to estimate and be accurate in that estimating?
Yeah, I think some of it at this point is definitely just being able to gauge how much me or the group of people who I'm working with is going to be able to produce in a day. I do estimate. I do want like estimating has been difficult because like I've definitely I think I've lost money in the past on jobs. So I think like learning to not be afraid to put a bigger price up, that if you think you're not going to get the job, it's better than losing money. You know what I mean? Sometimes I've always been like an advocate of I understand why cash flow is sometimes worth more than like the actual cost of the job, because you're going to have money coming through. But the unique deals, it's a lot of times, I think, having worked for a lot of builders, I know how much builders get for me after they upcharge, on me. So I know what my services are really worth to the customer. So like if there's not a GC involved, there's no reason that I should be not charging what the GC would be charging for me. So to me, I think the experience of working with builders helps me when I'm on my own, knowing what my services are actually worth to top dollar clients, and that has taken, it's not every builder is open with that information. And that has just come from like, through the years being like, you usually can figure out what your builder's charging for a percentage. That's kind of usually kind of something they have that on their website sometimes. So knowing what a homeowner is willing to pay for me has helped me estimate on my own, I'd have to say. I think like selling yourself as an individual, that you're like something that isn't, like one of the advantages of trying to promote yourself as an artist, and adding art to your work is like, you can be like, yeah, sure, you can get 10 masons who are going to give you a lower price, but I'm producing like an artistic project, and this is how much you have to pay me for my time. So it's really like how having the confidence to say that, having the portfolio to be able to say it, and having somebody taking you seriously. Not everyone, then a lot of people will just be like, go for a lower person, but you just have to stick to your guns sometimes. And the other thing is like the classic, you have a bunch of work lined up and you just drop the huge price. And if they say yes, then you got to do the job. And then like you say like, hey, the last guy just paid me this number. And they're like, oh, so it's like, I've been a real advocate of pushing how much we get paid, because I think we're underpaid for a long time. And I think things are finally kind of balance out. So
what do you attribute that to, where perhaps underpaid for so long, and then now you've kind of seen this say expectation of what your art is worth? Is there any like thing that you could relate that to, or is it just more and more people are becoming more and more aware of how much trades actually are worth?
yeah, that for sure. I mean, I think like very basic supply and demand. I think it's like regardless of what economic approach you take, I think supply and demand is something that drives things. And I just think like we were talking about the like push to send everyone to college for like 20 years, and the like I mean, even me, like growing up, being like, "Oh, those kids go to the Voc Tech to fix cars," and like, like, "Oh, idiots," stuff. And now it's like they get out. The true thing is they like get out and make 80 grand and like 1999. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I really had to like really understand and like grow up and learn like how important that was. And I was fortunate that I had builders in my family, and I kind of like, it was just lucky that I think that I grew up with other builders, and that I had a local guy who was willing to let me work in the summers. Like, and if I had done that, because a lot of people have dropped out. Like I've worked with lots of people who have did 10 years or 15 years. Then it's like, I'm going to go because I get benefits at the like, whatever supply yard, and I'll be the guy at the front desk, or I don't know. A lot of people have stopped doing masonry specifically. So it's not just there's a trade shortage in the United States. Then you have to like, now you're going to do one of like the more difficult tasks in one of the colder places of the United States. It's just like, there's not a ton of people who are super eager to go into it. And I think the pace of the money increasing has just, I've been like, oh, this is still worth it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like the guy I apprenticed for, he was like, fell off like some staging when he was like 68 and broke his neck, and rehabbed and then started building chimneys again. So it's like, I'm kind of like, it either kills you or it keeps you alive. It's one of the two.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank Mosier for sponsoring. I just got my hands on a Mosier 2 Pro, and we'll be using this a lot this year for our estimating and design process. It is a measure and capture device that will measure, draw, calculate areas, perimeters, volume, elevations, and lay out the entire project on our device. I'm going to be bringing it on every consultation to measure the dimensions and elevation of the entire project, export it to my design software, and have a working terrain map to begin my designs from, as well as to become more accurate in my quoting process. The Mosier 2 Pro is going to save me a ton of time and from having to make rough hand notes while taking these measurements in the field. Instead, Mosier does all of that for me. If you want to get your hands on a Mosier 2 Pro, use the promo code X8Hardscape. That's X, the number 8 Hardscape at Mosier.com, or simply click the link in the show notes. Now back to our episode. How do you go about managing client expectations with something that's so custom and, like you said, is an art? How do you manage a client's expectations of what they have in their mind and what you're going to actually build for them?
I think a lot of times is like getting along with them and letting them know that you actually care what they think. And like specifically, I've been brought into a lot of properties with this being like, hey, here we have all this material. What do you think you can do with it? Like, here's a bunch of naturally occurring rock, or we tore down all this stuff like an old barn foundation. Like, how can you repurpose this? What are some ideas? So it's like I'm not like like a trained landscape designer, but like I've done enough to be like, I know people in this area, for instance, like old granite, so like a lot of things, people like salvage granite. So like say people have 6 or 7 pieces. I'm like, hey, let's make these focal points somehow. Like, what are you looking? Do you want a fire pit? Do you want like a outdoor fireplace? Or do you want like these to be used as pavers? Like blah, 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 blah. So I think like a lot of times I'll go to a property, see things that already exist and be like give them ideas on top of whatever. Like sometimes there's a very specific plan, and that's why I'm there, and I'm there to follow the plan. And like the expectations are, hey, will you build exactly what we have on these plans? And I'm like, yes. And then at that point it's a lot of like, here's my price per square foot, here's blah blah blah. But if people are like, we want you to create something out of this pile of rocks, it's kind of more like, that's when I'm like, hey, just give me a budget, and like give me, 15, 20 grand, and and give me like a whatever a month, and we'll have a fluid conversation as we go. Here's my initial ideas. I'm totally open to doing new things as we go. And a lot of times once people like you and like you're honest and just show up on time, and a lot of like the real basic stuff, just be like, be polite, say thank you, like, show up when you say you do, answer your phone, respond to your emails, like make people feel like their time is worth something. Because like if someone's paying you 50, 100 grand to do a custom thing, it's like they've either have money, or they're making money, and they're used to their time being treated as valuable. So I think just knowing who you're dealing with, doing a little basic research on your client if you can, that's not like to a not creepy level, you know what I'm saying? Just be like, know who you're talking to, don't put your foot in your mouth, don't like talk about politics, things like that. So it's just like, I don't know, just try to like connect with people like on like a real basic human level, and then be like, all right, now let's do a project together, stuff like that. So
Does it become very obvious almost right away when you start talking to someone whether they would be like a client that you would take on and not? And what are some things that kind of come up that are some red flags in the conversation there?
that's a good question. It's like, I think when you have a couple, like a husband and a wife, who are like clearly not on the same page with the project. I don't want to say just a husband and a wife. Say it's two business partners. Say you're working for a couple of people, and there are different opinions coming from the side that's supposed to be hiring you. I've found that has leads to a lot of challenges. I don't really feel like I will work with any type of person with any type of beliefs. I guess to a point, you know what I'm saying? I don't go into this about what type of person you are. Like, I really try to find, I've just had to work with a lot of people who think differently about things than me, and just find ways to get along with those people. And so I don't think I'm judging them. The client's more like, if after a meeting, I feel like, wow, this is going to give me a lot of anxiety. It's like I had a client in Hawaii who, they said, will you build me a stone wall out of the rocks I have in my property? And it was like, build me a custom chicken coop. And it's like, yep. So I had the people helping me to build the wall, and she's like, okay, you can't take these rocks over here. Fine. So one of the guys worked for me, moved one of these rocks near a fence. I get a call at night, and she's like, you guys found $10,000 I had buried in the backyard under one of those rocks, and you took it. And so I'm holding all of your tools hostage until you give me my money back. So I'm like, what? And so I literally like called all the people who worked for me, like, did you guys find 10 grand in a bag? And like was like I have to like record this, and like we need to like, she's accusing us of stealing money. So like a few days later, she's like, oh, she calls me, she's like, oh, my gardener moved the wreath on the fence that was marking which rock it was, and the money's still there. And it's just like, so she ended up just being like, I think I'm gonna pay you in full for the job, and we're just not going to work together anymore. And like, so it's like early on, my whole point in telling that story, early on, that lady gave me like the creeps. Do you know what I'm saying? I needed the job, made me feel like uncomfortable. And I hate to say that I use vibes, but I think like because I'm so willing to be agreeable, if at the end of a conversation there's like friction or weirdness, I'm just kind of like, if I have other options, I will say no. But I'm really open to trying to meet different people's needs, and I like challenges.
I want to talk about how you mentioned the fire in Northern California and it taking your tools, your equipment, basically your business besides yourself there. How do you rebound from something like that, especially in the moment, and then the following moments after that, and deciding to kind of continue wherever you did continue next there?
Yes. So I mean, I was fortunate. My client, like, I had insurance, but I didn't have fire insurance for my business. So I was storing all of my equipment inside like a building that was attached to the house of the homeowner, and I like even had like a couple, like a machine that was like parked in a garage. So everything was actually physically in his structure when it burned down, so he was able to claim it under his homeowner's policy. And so I got super lucky. So it still took like 6 months. And like, that's a good question, because I'm always trying to explain to people that period of my life was like, it like decimated me. Like that fire set me back 5 years, like no doubt. Like I went from like thinking I was on like feeling like I was doing the best that I'd ever done, to be feeling like I was doing the worst that I ever done in like just a matter of a couple like weeks. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like I just bought like a brand. You know what the thing is, that fire, I was 2/3 through a job, and you know how like you realize a lot of your profit with your last check, and it's like that last check was never realized. Do you know what I'm saying? So like that job just ended, and like my best case scenario was get 70% value for my tools back. You know what I'm saying? So that period I went into debt, just like commercial debt. It's like, and I actually went back to Hawaii, did some jobs there, and then I got another job in Northern California, like I was saying, and I tried to stick it out through COVID, but like fire COVID was 1-2 punch there for me. It was like California it has been a tough place to exist. My sister, she's been in just this past couple of weeks helping me with childcare in Spain, but she left LA from the fires. So northern, so it's just like a tough place to be doing business, even though there's like so much work there. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but taxes are super high. It's a lot of environmental restrictions. It's like I was recently there couple months ago doing a stone hot tub, and I tried to go to the dump, and I didn't have like a safety vest and eye goggles, and they're like, "Can't come in." And I'm like, live free or die. It's like,
Jeez.
so, yeah, I forgot the original. Oh yeah, it was about the customers and stuff, and like yeah, fire. So after that point, I came back to New Hampshire, and this is where I keep coming back to New Hampshire in the story, because it's kind of like where my biggest network of clients and people that I work with is. So it's easiest for me to, kind of like just always have easier work here and use it as a home base to go off and do a travel project. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like that's when I'm here, it's easier for me to shoot off for a few weeks and stuff like that. But yeah. The weird thing about the fire is like, so my sister has had some success in the film industry, and her and I did a short film in Northern California, like in early 2020, about like it had the actor Dylan McDermott in it and his daughter, and it was like a 13-minute short film about like a father and daughter who had like gone through a Northern California wildfire. So I'd also invested a fair amount of money at that time in like producing that short film and getting that out into film festivals. And so that like I was like really overextended when the fire hit me. So it was like it but like at this point, being distanced from it, like the toughness that I had to have in those years doing business after that, like really going back to being like, oh man, I have to really focus on like getting new clients, making sure I'm busy, like because my whole life just changed rapidly fast. So it was really I feel like I grew a ton in that period. I got a lot better at my trade in that period. I had to go and work for other people after being the boss for a long time. So it was like, it was just a very like, it's good to be humbled every so often.
Right. Is that where the Drinkwater Studios comes into play?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
my sister and I, it's like, and I'm supporting another small film as like an executive producer right now. That's like I did not create or start from scratch, but the thing is COVID canceled like a year and a half of film festivals, and like so it was not only that fire like screwed up like that my big building, like COVID screwed up like this 2 year film festival plan that we had to promote it, and we had like an amazing festival run and a lot of critical success, and like we will do some more stuff in the future, but it's like just not it's not lucrative when you're at this point. It's like a huge it's like that's like a whole other thing. It's just like so much money to like get going in that industry, and it was I don't regret doing it, but it was a very but the thing is how I can relate this to what we're talking about is the executive producer role is so much like a general contractor role, because on the set of like a film, it's like there's the head of the lighting, this head subcontractor, the head of the photography, makeup, blah blah blah, and they all come, and then you have these meetings, and they all kind of go back to the subs, and they do their own jobs, and there's a budget, and like the parallel of the executive producer role to being like the head of a project was like I had no idea how much it was going to help me when we were like doing the shooting of the film itself. It was really, really fascinating. I didn't anticipate all the overlap, but that role was very similar in how you had to like just interact with people and organize things. And but even the buildings of the sets, stuff like that physically. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that period really speaks to your resiliency, and I ask this question to every business owner that comes on, but you may have already answered it here, or perhaps you have another story you'd want to share. I ask a horror story that you've experienced in business. The reason why I ask that is just to help younger contractors just getting in, like what could happen, and perhaps put some guardrails in place to prevent it from happening to them, or prepare them for that. But do you have another horror story that you'd want to
yeah,
share?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm built on horror stories. Like, yeah,
Okay.
so I was doing, I had this really famous author client in Hawaii, and I'd done, 5 or 6 smaller projects for them, and they had me, I'm by no means like a concrete expert. Like, I pour concrete sometimes, I do a lot of footers, I don't finish concrete at all. So anyway, I do like all these like concrete walkways around their house and like a concrete driveway, and I like was there. I flew like 4 or 5 people from New England who do concrete, and I borrowed my buddy's laser, and I like laid the whole thing out, and like the laser wasn't calibrated, and then I poured like 50 yards of concrete, and like everything was pitched wrong, and the drainage was wrong. So it's just like why I say that is like don't like skip all like the little small steps. Don't get cocky. Like don't think you're like unfat. Just like any little thing can bite you. Just like be like willing to do the laborer's job if you're the boss. Do you know what I mean? Double check things. Like I don't know. Just like don't. The mistakes I've made have been like little weird, simple things like that could have been avoided, or just like rushing, like so I don't know what the exact lesson is there, but that's just a horror story that I remember. When you
Definitely.
say horror story, so I ended up having to fix it, and I didn't get any more money for fixing it.
Yeah,
So, but it's like, yeah. So I don't know, just do dot all your I's, cross your T's, I guess.
gotcha.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George, on multiple occasions now, I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at joinktc. Now back to our episode.
For somebody that wants to get into masonry and learn the craft, where do you suggest that they start for something like that?
Well, it's like it really depends. If you want to be a union mason. You know what I mean? Like, just try to like get in the laborers union or learn, go work for, if you get out of high school, go work for a local mason for, and then switch to the union. If you want to be, like, so a lot of people get into the stone world from different angles. Some are hardscapers, some are landscapers turned hardscapers, turned stone guys. So it really depends on what you're interested in doing. Like, do you want to be involved in building stone buildings? Do you want to be building like stuff like patios, landscape walls, creative stuff? I really think because of the lack of like trade schools in the United States, that like working with somebody, there's so much online, so many people online, and so many people have such a big gallery of work. I think it would just be like find somebody who you feel like is like-minded and be like willing to work hard for them. And I think there's a shortage of people who are like loyal, who work hard, who show up every day. So I just like, if you're really into it, just find somebody local and just see if you like it first. Do you know what I mean? That would be a good first step. Like, I don't really know. Like Canada, it seems like there's like some really great masonry schools, because I see online and meet some people who seem like super talented masons who have gone through like their whole certification program. And if I felt like anything like that existed in the United States that suggests that, I do know a lot of people who have really enjoyed the Stone Trust. It's like I was saying earlier, it wasn't because of my entry point. It hasn't kind of been for me, and they're more just about dry stone walling. But I know that like that's an organization that's super supportive. So I mean, if you're like want to build stone walls, I'd probably recommend going to this, check out the Stone Trust. Um, there's not a lot of people who are like do like bricks and blocks and things like that. So I think it'd be about finding a local mason, and like, a lot of local, like a lot of masons are jerks. It's like, it's not like a joke. It's like so it's gonna have to find somebody who's not gonna like treat you bad, and maybe will give you, you know, it was like locally, like if you're around here, it's like working. If you want to do landscape stuff, where you had Mark from Green Monster on a lot, he's a great guy. He's a good guy to teach. He's been awesome guy who's a boss, because he's like wants to learn new stuff, so he brings people in who know how to do that stuff, and not everybody can hire you and not know how to do something, and then like you teach them but them still be in charge. It's like he's really, his energy and vibe on jobs is really like he wants to learn, and his like made huge leaps. So if you're in like my area, he's a good guy to talk to, just people like him, or like look who's doing if you want to do veneer, like try to find out who's like just veneering big homes near you, and like there's always entry points for like cutting and mixing mud and things.
Right. Yeah, Graham, is there a project that you have in mind that's sort of like a dream project, or a project that you want to do at some point in the future?
I'd like to rebuild the Old Man in the Mountain, but other than that, that collapsed in New Hampshire in like 2003, and like it's like a huge like bluff up here, and it's like on our license plate in our like state emblem. So it's like that. If I had like to build like the one grand project, then yeah. But like right now, I'm probably gonna try to get like a decrepit stone building in Spain and like restore it, and like kind of maybe do like try to do a YouTube thing, or like just do an
Nice.
Instagram kind of thing, and like try to make enough money off like fixing it up and modernizing it so that's worthwhile.
That's really cool. And I hope you do that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I hope so too. There's like one thing I'm learning about Spain is like massive bureaucracy. It's wild to navigate through. Like this immigration process has been, I mean, nothing short of like it's really really hard and intrusive and like stressful. Moving there and actually being there has been incredible, like for a lot of reasons. So
Nice.
yeah.
Last question I have for you here, Graham, and I ask this once again to every business owner that comes on. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? And feel free to take that wherever you want, personal, business related, but what's one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the beginning?
It's like I think when I started, I just thought I had to buy all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think I thought I needed like trucks and tools and insurance policies. Like I bought workers' comp before I had anyone working for me for some reason. You know what I mean? I just thought that's what you did. And I would say not to too quickly get overextended. And I think I meet a lot of people who like they get these small businesses going, and like our country, our system is kind of like grow, or pay taxes. I think sometimes just pay some taxes and stay small. And like those taxes, you think that they're like, I'm paying $4 more grand unless I bought another truck, but then that truck you get to fix and maintain. But I kind of feel like don't grow too fast. Find out what's important to you. If you want to be a big business owner, take one route. If you want to do the trade and actually be the guy whose hands are on the stones, you sometimes just have to pay a little more taxes and be like, and not have as many write-offs. And when you travel and work, sometimes it stinks because you have to pay taxes in multiple states. It's just like realize what your goal is at the beginning, I guess. And I meet a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't even get to lay a stone anymore because of all my guys' stuff. And it's like, if your goal is to make a bunch of money, a lot of people seem to be selling their landscape companies right now to bigger corporations. And that's definitely a fad around here. So if that's your goal, then build your company, get everything in software, have really good books. But I mean, someone like me, I'm more interested in I want to make good money, but I want to be doing the work. So, as soon as I got more than one or two people, employee drama quickly overtakes your time.
Yeah.
So,
Graham, thanks so much for your time. I know you're flying out this week and you made time for me here. I do really appreciate that. Where can our audience go find out more about you, and where do you want to send them to here?
I mean, just the best route is to check out my Instagram. It's at Instagrahamski. I interact with a lot of people there. Feel free to send me a message. But there's a long, gallery of my work there and stuff like that if you want to check it out. But otherwise, I'm not really promoting or selling anything at the moment. But it's nice to interact with people, who are in the trades and interested in this stuff. So yeah, feel free to reach out there.
Graham, thanks so much.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Graham at Instagrahamski on Instagram. He's a great follow, and there are a lot of great projects that he's posted of his work. And thank you for listening to the How to Hardscape podcast. If you found this episode or any other of our episodes helpful, give us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, a written review on Apple. That really does help us. And if you're looking for a software to dive into to help streamline processes in your business, check out the How to Hardscape headquarters software at hthheadquarters.com. That's hthheadquarters.com. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors.
Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. If you're looking for efficiency consultants who have a lot of experience in our industry, check out Knowledge Tree Consulting at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And thank you to Mosier for jumping on board to sponsor the How to Hardscape podcast. I just got my hands on a Mosier 2 Pro, and I'll be using it to measure, draw, calculate areas, perimeters, volume, elevations, and lay out the entire project on my device and for estimating and design process. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast. Do you want your last name in this, or just
Sure,
Graham?
fine. Yeah, your last name is Wallerzak.
Wallerzak?
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Oh, close enough.
It's a Polish last name, so actually, maybe just to make it simpler, you can call me Graham.
Graham. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm also part Polish too, so that's nice.
Yeah,
I just don't have a Polish last name.
Yeah, it's like I'm only a quarter Polish, but when you have the last name, it's mine is 99%.
Awesome.